It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
All right. It is Sunday, February 15th. Wow, I actually had to look at the date, forgetting that yesterday was Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day for everybody who celebrated. For those out there that may have not had a significant other yesterday, that's okay. We are all family, and you're never truly alone, and I truly believe that. So, plus, you probably saved quite a bit of money by not having a significant other yesterday. But not only did I have to buy a Valentine's Day gift for the wife, I had to buy one for my mom and buy one for Bella, my doggie. So 3 gifts, not just one. But and her mother, 4 gifts. Ugh. How's everybody doing this weekend? Not a bad weekend. Interesting stuff going on in the world of professional wrestling. A lot has happened over the last 7 days. If you checked out Thursdays, Wednesday Night Dynamite, because we did it a day late for various reasons. We ran the table with predictions. TNA No Surrender, nailed it. AEW Grand Slam Australia, nailed it. Right down to Wheeler Yuta getting all his hair chopped off. So, saw a majority of both shows. Thought they did very well. TNA has me scratching my head a little bit at times, like questioning why some of the decisions they're doing, but I got to keep reminding myself they are still a distant number 3 and still definitely better than where they were the last couple of years. I still think about the time when Scott D'Amore was let go. And remember that anonymous email to Anthem, from wrestlers there? They want him back. And listen, he's very well liked. Not saying anything negative about Scott D'Amore. But, man, was TNA stuck in the mud for years and years and years. The fact that they're on a new network, that the average viewer is 60 years old, and in 3 weeks, they popped a better rating than they did 7 years ago. And keep in mind that 7 years ago, streaming media wasn't as popular and prevalent as it is now. Fact that they could pop that kind of rating in 3 weeks tells you how stuck in the mud they were back then. You've heard me for many, many years, and we always referenced Tessa Blanchard's World Championship run because that's pretty much the time frame the last they really did anything remotely close to 200,000. But I thought the pay-per-view overall was good. Congrats to Trey Miguel. It's weird how things go down the way they do, the last couple of weeks. But look, at the end of the day, I'm sure there is still quite a bit of disappointment. But in the end, everybody seems to be doing well, and that's all that matters, right? So anyway, big shout out to everybody who is live. Big shout out to everybody who is on the archive. Just a little plug, if you allow me to. If you haven't checked it out yet, dontony.com, wrestling-news.com, all the audio platforms. You can check out the podcast Forbidden Door, featuring yours truly and Joey924, one of the original OGs, going back to before the Don Tony Kevin Castle show. We did a show for the first time in over 18 years. We ended up doing 4 hours. Everything you could possibly want to have had covered, we covered, and we had a lot of fun doing it. So I definitely recommend you check it out. That is an episode that you will remember years from now. So how's everybody doing? I got a little vibe as far as what everybody seems to be talking about. I put a couple of topics in the title for this episode. There's a few other things as well. I saw somebody super chat me earlier about El Grande Americano. And I didn't think that this was as prevalent as it was perceived, that many people in the IWC are angry at WWE. And listen, John Alba, I mean, I can't say anything bad about the guy. Back in my earlier days, I criticized everybody. I said shit about everybody. And yes, I have issued quite a few apologies over the years. You grow up, life goes on. But John Alba, I really can't say much bad about him ever. And he was critical going after WWE, that it said that you, depending on AI and this and that. And boy, oh boy, oh boy. Tisk, tisk, tisk. It's a shame. It's a shame how some people don't think before they talk. And I shall explain why in a little bit. Should we open up with that? Should we just get it out of the way? Because El Grande Americano bringing up Chad Gable's return and that vignette that is floating around on AAA television, I honestly didn't think we were going to even talk about it today. But who sent this earlier? Who sent this earlier? Let me give him a shout out. I don't know who this is. All I do is I see it, El Grande, so let's shout him out. Let's get it out of the way quick. Tommy D. My thoughts on John Alba and fans upset at WWE using AI with Chad Gable's return as El Grande Americano. I'll say this, with all due respect. For those that don't know, on AAA television, Chad Gable was featured talking in Spanish as El Grande Americano, saying that there's an imposter. And he brings up Ludwig Kaiser and all the things that he has done, even to the point, you got to remember, this is Mexico. This is not American television. Even to the point that Chad Gable says that the imposter actually started dating a Mexican woman. That's how much of an imposter he is. He's dating a Mexican woman. I thought that would have triggered a lot of bit of hate. But no, it's AI and showing graphics and footage that aren't real. Boy, oh boy, I can't believe, I'm not kidding when I say this. I can't believe I'm even saying this. You motherfuckers forget the origins of El Grande Americano. It's fucking Chad Gable under a mask. Everything that was portrayed about him when he first came in as El Grande Americano was fake. It's satire. Everything about him is satire. Of course you're going to use AI. No fucking footage. But here's the best part. This shows me that a lot of those people out there don't even watch AAA television. It's like what I always say, recently especially. If you're going to write a food review on Yelp, make sure you buy the food first and try it. El Grande Americano, Chad Gable, is a heel in AAA right now. And yes, being fake is part of his character. I sound like Vince Rolo. It's part of his character. My God. You people just try to find things to get upset at and not even think about it. I saw some bearded pumpkin, and I should talk. I mean, really, I should talk. But I'm the boss, capiche? I saw some pumpkin, this bearded pumpkin. Thought he was having fun with some AEW haters. And listen, I don't condone AEW hating. Criticizing, yes, but hating, no. But people were making fun of that AEW booked Louis Armstrong Stadium for their next Queens, New York show instead of Arthur Ashe Stadium. And like, they couldn't even book it. And yes, Louis Armstrong Stadium is about half of the size of Arthur Ashe. I saw this bearded bumpkin that thought he was going to get a blowjob probably from Dax Harwood. And I'm sure a lot of you saw the video on X. He's sitting in the left-hand corner of his screen. And he's got these weird pauses, almost like he's saying without saying, gotcha. He's got these weird pauses. And in the background, he's got an article from Newsweek that Arthur Ashe Stadium is under renovation. So his entire fuck you to haters was, do your homework. He literally has written on the top, do your homework. Well, Mr. Bumpkin, I live 10 minutes away. I've been writing insurance since 1998. One of my longtime contractors is actually doing concrete work at Arthur Ashe Stadium. And guess what? Pumpkin, cheesecake. Arthur Ashe Stadium is not closed. See, I'm doing it now. I'm doing a pause. Arthur Ashe Stadium is not closed during renovations. If AEW really wanted to have their Grand Slam in Arthur Ashe Stadium, probably could pull it off. But the thing is, USTA, not Transit Authority, but Tennis Association, they're the ones that own the buildings. And while renovations are being done, the U.S. Open is still taking place. And while renovations are being done, they are recommending highly to AEW, concerts, sporting events, chess tournaments. They're recommending music, concerts. They're recommending Louis Armstrong Stadium. Because right now, Arthur Ashe Stadium, they're doing renovations until 2027. They're going to be adding a couple of thousand extra seats. See, Bumpkin, I don't have a news article in front of me to reference. I did my homework because I live over here and I insure one of the contractors. There's something called an insurance risk that they prefer that you do it next door because, you know, not everybody, especially insurance companies, are very keen in insuring someone who's having a big event with thousands of people. And meanwhile, there's renovations going on. So, you know, it's getting back to Grande Americano. Guys, do your research first. You know, Chad Gable, he's a heel in AAA. He's a fucking fake. Since day one, he's satiring Lucha Libre. El Grande Americano, Lucha Libre. Remember the posters? Remember the black and white stuff? This is what it is. We've lost our way when we use an AI. Oh, my God. Yeah. Rudo. No, puta. Puta. What's wrong with you people? I say this lightheartedly. Lighten up, man. Now, if they start doing this for like Roman Reigns and CM Punk and building up feuds and trying to do some little AI to manipulate, yeah, then you bitch. But based on a character that was fraud in the first place, are you kidding me? I don't know. Tommy, I hope you like that answer. All right. I want to just very quickly just mention briefly about what I used at the beginning of this episode. Let me just take that off. Thank you very much for that, Tommy. You guys see what's going on right now with Brody King? Listen, I've made it clear many, many, many years ago, I'm not the biggest Brody King fan. When he got upset at the Judgment Day saying that it was the House of Black on Wish, I was like, shut the fuck up. Seriously. It's kind of ironic that Edge ended up going there after all. But, you know, the thing is this. The Judgment Day, even though the name, you know, is new for a faction, even though they have pay-per-views by that name, factions are always inspired by something else. It's not a Temu ripoff. You know, it is what it is. But I also believe that, you know, some people have radical views about this world. Okay, some people have radical views. And if you saw my thumbnail for this episode, you see something that Brody King said 3 years ago and something that he did, you know, recently. And now all of a sudden there's this wild outrage for Tony Khan to take action for him to wear these abolish ICE shirts and sparking fan chants of fuck ICE and leave your political stuff at home and this and that. This reminds me so much of Trey Miguel, who I am a huge supporter of from several years ago. oh, how could they not know what happened 5 years ago, 6 years ago? My friends, when the Rascals all came out except for Trey Miguel, and we didn't know exactly why yet, 95% of the wrestling podcast and news world also did not know. Because 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when he had that little run-in with David Starr and some other person on social media, people didn't give a shit. Trey Miguel wasn't a big name 5, 6 years ago. See, to me, I've always said this. If you are outraged at abuse, no matter what it is, pet abuse, sexual abuse, whatever abuse you want to choose, if you're outraged whether Joe Schmuck, Tom Nobody does it, or Tom Famous does it. When your outrage is based on the visibility and the profile of a person, that tells you that, you really don't get upset at it. Like anytime I see someone abusing an animal, I want to see them. I want to see them die and grow up to be a water bug. And just when they reach puberty, and the water bug thinks he's going to bang the water bug down the block, somebody squishes him and steps on him or puts a roach motel right in front of their ass. All right? I don't care if it's somebody famous that does it or it's some fucking bum on the street. All right? Nobody gave a shit many years ago because his name wasn't big enough. Now, because of what happened, however you feel about it, you got what you got. Same thing with Brody King. Here's a little fact, and if you guys notice, especially the fat bearded pumpkin out there that might be still watching. I know, I'm fat too. I don't have no notes. I don't use a teleprompter. I have no script. Everything I'm saying is from here and here. Bet a lot of you didn't know that Brody King's outspoken views of police go much further back than 2023. You could go to 2020. You could go to 2018. 2020, it was a direct response of a TMZ story where cops were pointing a gun at some teens in California, something like that. And he was talking about, show me a good cop anywhere. Brody King hates cops. Brody King hates ICE. Brody King does not like law enforcement. I think that is very radical, but that is his right. He's an American, as Bad Bunny and everybody else. You have the right to have some really, really radical views out there. The thing is, though, is that when you are a very visible person and you are a famous person, you celebrity, athlete, whatever it is, your words are magnified. And that's why I get really fucking annoyed lately at Meltzer and some others because they don't understand how much their voice is magnified. Say something ridiculously stupid and you will have a shitload of people influenced by it. Words do matter. And the thing is with Brody King is that last year there was some anger about him wearing an Abolish ICE shirt on AEW television. There was no outrage 3 years earlier when he said what he said about cops. And for anybody who's going to say to me, well, Don Tony, that was 2020. And that's like, AEW and Brody King, really nothing there. And it's doesn't matter. In 2022 and 2023 and those years after, those comments were brought up by Ringside News and maybe one other news site. And guess what, my friends? Nobody cared. In fact, you'll be shocked to see how many people out there that were like, hey, he's entitled to his opinion. Now, because he's main eventing against MJF, now because CNN picked up on it, now because the major news world picks up on it, now suddenly is Tony Khan needs to take action. This, that. Dave Meltzer, and I said this on Thursday Night Dynamite, Hobbs is going to be the final straw where I just unsubscribe with Meltzer and no longer give him money. I appreciate what that man has done over the years. I have been a huge supporter of him for decades. I will never forget some of his generosity with some of the causes that I've done way back when. You guys know what I'm talking about. So I always felt indebted that, yeah, maybe Dave Meltzer is way past his time and, you know, he doesn't have the connections like he used to. And now he's just trying to go in cruise control sometimes. And, you know, we know his bias. I know his bias with Japanese wrestling for decades. That doesn't bother me. Him choosing Japanese wrestlers or his readers, you know, choosing Japanese wrestlers, put Mystico #1 as wrestler of the year. That's fine. That's fine. If I put Mystico on my awards, it probably get like 1% of the viewers. Why? Because most of everybody who tunes into my stuff does not watch international wrestling. No one is wrong. Everybody is different. It's just like music. Not everybody tunes into hip hop. Not everybody tunes into country music. Not everybody tunes into rock. Not everybody tunes into this. So you could be throwing out hip hop people and I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. When Bad Bunny first came onto the WWE scene, I had no idea who that was. Never heard of him. Never heard of him. Wasn't my my type of music. Now I understand why the guy's got fucking billions and billions of views. You know? So the thing is, when Brody King 3 years ago said what he said about fuck cops, actually put a picture of the big boss man from WWF and that match against Undertaker, and he's hanging in the middle of the ring, and he says that all cops are the boss man. He wants all cops hung. How do you think that feels? One of my best friends is a sergeant. My brother's best friend is a sergeant. I know a few cops in my neighborhood that were killed over the years. There's a lot of good people. You know, that's why I always said, people were asking me about recently with Minnesota and the Somalis and all those billions of dollars of fraud. And I said, you can't take it out on every Somali. You know, just because you have 10, 20, 100 Somalis committing all this crazy fraud doesn't mean that thousands and tens of thousands of them are doing it as well. I have said this for years and years and years. There are a lot of cops out there that definitely have no business being a cop. There are cops out there that have never been put to the test of and understand subconsciously the difference between your life being threatened and your ass being kicked. And trust me, in my neck of the woods, you know, there is a stark difference between the two. We have witnessed tragedies over the years. And a cop is getting their ass kicked. Getting their ass kicked. No one reached for a gun. Other person doesn't have a weapon. Just getting his ass kicked. You go home, black eyes, go to your wife or your husband, whatever floats your boat. You say, yeah, this guy kicked my ass, but he's in jail. You don't turn around because you're getting your ass kicked and whack somebody. If you just listen, Tony Khan was in fear of his life when CM Punk just went boo. And I hate using that, but my point is, you know, when you're a cop especially, your threshold for pain and ass kicking should be even much higher level. You get your ass kicked, that doesn't mean that your life is in jeopardy. And I've seen videos numerous times. So yeah, there is a shitload of bad seeds over the years. That doesn't mean every single one of them are. And when you paint that broad brush that all cops are this and all ICE are this and all this and that, that's fucking dangerous, especially when you're in power. But my friends, you weren't outraged very much last year. That big boss man hanging picture, most people didn't give a fuck about last year, 3 years ago. A lot of people didn't give a shit in 2020 when he was responding to the TMZ article. So no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. For most of you out there that are demanding action to be taken, no. Even though I think Brody King is just too radical, you know, that's his opinion. You kind of respect it because we live in a free country and you have the right to have ridiculous opinions. But all this wild, you know, noise the last couple of weeks, I'm like, where the fuck were you? You know, look at Hangman Page. Look at this, you know, outrage about Marty Scurll. And if you look deeper, a lot of the people, their answer is not, let's take it out on Hangman Page. If we take it on everybody else, we got to take it out on him too. No, their answer is, let's find other people to take it out on instead. You know, yeah, John Cena, R-Truth, a lot of your favorites still support Vince McMahon. Didn't R-Truth go to his birthday party? I don't know if he did. Well, I don't want to single anybody. My point is, there are some people out there that are still very close with Vince McMahon and support him because sometimes your friends do fall. Now, we don't know if what happened with Vince McMahon and Janelle Grant is a crime or if it's just, you know, a pig, you know, that just abused his power and, you know, finally found his freak and she loved everything up until the point that the money stopped. We don't know. We don't know if he committed any crimes that he's going to get away with. But, you know, you have family and friends that's your support group. You want to try to help somebody bring them up. And, you know, I feel with the exception of, you know, some crimes, you know, you got to give someone a chance at redemption. So, you know, when I see this outrage and I see other examples of it, people are fucking silent. Nah, man. Nah, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't work for me, brother. That's probably the way I put it. So, yeah, so that's my take on this. And you know what's the worst part about it? People are using it to, what word did I use earlier? Trifling? People are using that to gain advantage. Dave Meltzer, perfect example. That was, you know, like there's been a lot of strike ones for me with Dave Meltzer over the years. Very few strike two. Strike two was the Brody King thing. Because here's the thing, and Dave, I don't care how much he's a writer, a wrestling historian, a human encyclopedia. All right, in the real world, when you open up an article by saying the deal is, that means you're spitting facts. It is not an opinion. An opinion is, in my opinion, IMO. When you say in your article, the deal is, this was higher than Tony, you lied through your fucking teeth. And you never in a million years ever expected Warner Brothers Discovery to issue a statement. Just like all of the people out there that call out Vince McMahon over the years and Triple H and Nick Khan and everybody else. You motherfuckers know those people will never ever go publicly and say, you're a liar. What you're saying is not true. They'll just ignore you. You know, they always call out people that 99 out of 100 times, they never respond. This time, there was a response. And boy, you know what the worst part about it is? And here's where strike three is coming. And big props to who sent this, because I'll segue to this. Tommy D. Okay, a twofer today. Thank you, Tommy. Any update on my Hobbs story? And if Dave is caught lying again, why do so many people still cover everything he reports? Well, I'll answer the second part first. The reason why a lot of, I call them secondary and tertiary sites, still cover him, because they need to. They need to. Listen, when I have wrestling-news.com since 1999, I stopped reporting as a reporter in like 2006. Since then, I'm strictly opining, opinion. Doesn't mean I don't get news and get facts, but my goal is to give opinions, analyze, discussion. That's what it always is, and that's fine. Leave the expert work for the experts, the reporters. But here's the thing. When I was doing wrestling-news.com, I was a secondary site. The primary sites are OneWrestling.com, Meltzer, Wade Keller, Now Fightful, WrestleVotes. Those are the primary sites. And everything else is a secondary or tertiary. So they need other people's stuff in order to get anybody to tune into their stuff. The only thing they do is they will manipulate the titles or manipulate some of the facts to try to get you to click on them over someone else. You want a good example of it, go look up. It ended up being Newsweek. All right. You guys know what Newsweek is. You want a good laugh, go on Google Images. I don't remember exactly what the topic was, but go on Google Images and type in parentheses, Cody Rhodes, and type in Newsweek. And you'll see a story come up very recently about Cody Rhodes. And it's a bullshit story. But the most amazing thing about it is if you look at the photo, it's a picture of Heidenreich. It's Heidenreich. And that's done intentionally. We've talked about that in the past. Someone will talk about how someone is sick in the hospital with surgery, and they're talking about, this person, and then you see it's a picture of someone entirely different. And you'll see 1,000 people say, bruh, you got the wrong person up there. Bruh, that's not this person. Bro, you got it wrong. And they don't ever take it down. Do you ever notice on X when, especially even just regular people out there, they'll write something wrong, and then someone will call them out 5 minutes later and say, dude, this is wrong. I think the greatest one recently was Mark Henry. Mark Henry was at the San Antonio Spurs basketball game with his son. And his son and Mark Henry posed with the World Heavyweight Championship. And I don't remember the name of the wrestling news site, but we'll just call them Pro Wrestling. ProWrestlingVirgins.com. And if you go, it's still up there to this day. They posted the picture of Mark Henry and his son posing with the belt. And they write as the title, San Antonio Spurs gift World Heavyweight Championship to Mark Henry. So cool. It's actually how they wrote it, with all hearts. Within 10 minutes, Mark Henry's like, we came with the title. We brought it for them. This is wrong. You would think when someone gets it totally wrong, oh shit, my bad, and delete it. You ever ask yourself how come when people write bullshit, especially on X, they never delete it? Why not? It's not even changing it or fixing it. You know what they'll do? They'll put a second post underneath it. Correction. Why don't they just delete it? Because everybody is addicted to either hits or ad revenue. And this is why all of these sites still cover Meltzer. That's why Eric Bischoff could voice an opinion. And it's a news story. And then you click on it, and it's not a news story. It's like, on 83 weeks, Eric Bischoff feels that TKO, blah, blah. That's not fucking news. That's an opinion of one person who's publicly admitted that he doesn't watch a WWE product. He'll do watch-alongs and reviews when there's money involved, but he's not a regular follower. This is what they do. This is why they cover it. Now, as far as the Hobbs story, all I'll say is this. By 1 week from today, on the next show, I will give you all an update. But if you heard Thursday's show, you already know what to be prepared for. All right? For everyone that doesn't know, shame on you for not tuning in on Thursday. But for those that don't know, all right, here's the short story of it. I shouldn't even be saying this publicly, but I'll say it here. About a week ago, in response to Joey and I doing Forbidden Door, I had gotten a lot of emails from people that used to tune in years ago, people that found the Minority Report years later through Kev and I, few people that, were longtime DTKC fans, and one person in particular sent me an email. And the thing is, if you remember last Sunday's thumbnail, remember Dave Meltzer scooping the bullshit, and Will Hobbs had the book, and instead of it saying the Book of Hobbs, it's Meltzer's Book of Bullshit, or whatever it is. And that was because of the whole contract stuff. He claimed, all to make it seem like Tony Khan and AEW were really offering big money to Hobbs. First, he brought up that years back, it was comparable to Jericho, but not really Jericho, but it's Kevin Steen and Sami Zayn from 5 years ago, but not necessarily Seth Rollins would have been 2 years ago. And then you got to remind yourself that, Will Hobbs, when he first got signed in AEW, was an unknown. And the idea that we're supposed to think that he got close to Jericho, the fact that you mention any of those names in the same sentence is ridiculous. Then you start thinking about Ospreay and you start thinking about Moxley and others, and you're telling me that an unknown got that kind of money way back when, and now, he left to go to WWE to bet on himself. To bet on himself. Says who? Says who? So we shredded that argument last week. Okay. I get my Don Tony emails, and there's someone in California who claims to have gone to school with Hobbs, Royce Keys. And this person's like, long time DTKC. Thank you for setting everything straight. But I don't know if you guys know, recently, out of nowhere, Dave Meltzer starts putting out the claim that Hobbs is a lot older than was perceived. And I even think he said that Will Hobbs is 41 years old. Okay? So now this became a big story the last 7 days. So this person emails me and claims he went to school with Hobbs and said, DT, I know you're one of the few that would address Meltzer's shit. And I have said this many times over the years. Kev, God rest his soul, and I have been emailed, DM'd. Even people would call in the shows back in the day when we used to take calls. There would be people that would claim to be certain people. They'd be claiming to be relatives of people, friends of people, abused by certain people. That's how I became friends with Steve Austin's ex-girlfriend, Tess Broussard. She reached out to me and she's like, yeah, I just broke up with Steve Austin. You want to know the truth? And I always go into it with skepticism. I don't believe it until the person shows me. Joni Lara, you guys remember when she passed away, her family members were reaching out to me to give me dirt on that guy, Anthony. Not Anthony as in me, but the enabler, that piece of shit that contributed to her death. All right? We covered it back. People would reach out. And sometimes they end up being who they say they are, and sometimes they don't. We've had people claim, I can't tell you how many Alexa Blisses have reached out to me over the last 5 years. But here's the thing. This person reaches out to me, and I didn't know exactly what this person was trying to get at. Like, was he giving me information? Did he want me to put something out there? So I wrote back to him, and I said, I was like, where'd you go to school? So he told me. And I was like, all right. I was like, what should I do about this? Because it's none of my business how old Hobbs is. It's none of my business. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, but it's none of your business either how old he is. Why do we need to know his age? Because? So it's none of my business. So I said to this person, I'm like, look, I said, because he was annoyed at what Meltzer was doing. And I said, listen, whatever his reason is, Meltzer, it's none of our business how old he is. I said, I don't know if he's just trying to perceive that Hobbs is on the verge of being way past his prime. I said, and that's really fucked up because the guy just started. He's not even on a brand as of yet. And he says you even had a chance to get his feet wet. And you're already throwing controversy. Did you know that people who are angry that Hobbs joined the Harvey Weinstein of wrestling, that anything perceived as negative, they'll run with it. So I asked this person, look, it's none of my business. But I said, what do you have? And he said to me, he goes, I'm looking for my yearbook. He says, when I find my yearbook, I'll send you screenshots. And I was like, fine. Then we were talking a little bit about Kev and some other things. And I was like, listen, even if you send me this stuff, I'm not posting it publicly. I said, but if you show me, information and it contradicts what Dave Meltzer is saying, I said, I will call out Dave Meltzer for it. So I thanked him, and he's sending me the pictures of the yearbook. I haven't gotten it yet. He was looking for it, and I believe that there's no reason for this guy to lie. I'm not shouting him out or anything. If he ends up giving me the info and it's correct what he sends me, then I'll shout him out. But no matter what, I'm still not making Hobbs' information public. So I got contacted by Royce Keys a few days ago. And I don't, listen, one thing about me over the years, I don't make conversations public unless somebody tells me, go ahead, or it's okay, or this and that. I won't say what was discussed, but he was definitely curious because of what I wrote on X, that someone reached out to me that he went to school with. So he contacted me, and we had a very, very, very nice conversation, and we talked about a bunch of things. And, you know, the bottom line is this, and I'll say it like this in a very innocent way. Friendly guy. And everything that's been told to me over the years about him, people that have worked with him, it sure appears to be true. I will also tell you this also. I know this will never get back to Dave Meltzer or anybody else, but I'm going to say it anyway. You know, I always use the phrase that words do matter. And this is a guy that did not go to WWE to bet on himself. Yeah, that's part of it, obviously. But he's got a family. He's got mouths to feed. And he wants to set his family for life. He wants to challenge himself, build a legacy, this and that. And that should be respected and commended. And without getting into too deep with this, when you throw shit like that, that bleeds over to real life. I'll say it like that. It bleeds over to real life. And that affects families. And, you know, when this person sends me that information, whether Hobbs is 34, 41, 77, 39, 42, hut, whatever his age is, I'm not saying it publicly. It's none of my business. If he ever wanted to reveal it, that's on him. But I will say this. If Dave Meltzer lied, you will just see me say online, wow, Dave, that's fucked up. Because there's a lot more to it. Because I got news for you. There are some people out there in the wrestling world that are some of the most nicest people around there. Some that have had some controversy on TV recently. One or two I may have mentioned earlier in the show. And they don't understand why people in the media world are out to get them. Why? I've had at least two in the last couple of weeks say to me, why? Why me? Like, I don't say nothing about nobody. I'm just trying to live my life, live my dream, support my family, make money, make history. Like, why? Why are some of these people trying to sabotage it? And that's why at the end of the day, you know, even back when I used to do stuff in wrestling, I always treated everybody like regular people. You know, no matter who I got commingled with. You know, and honestly, that's to my detriment to the extent because there are so many people that I have had the pleasure of being around over the years, and I never took a picture. You know, I always felt like, I'm not going to be marky and say, can I take a picture with you? Like sometimes you're in a situation with someone and it gets captured, but you know, I always treat people like regular people. And, you know, not ooh and ah and not say things, you know, just to make somebody feel good. And just because they're they're a larger than life entertainer, I always treat everybody the same. With respect. And that's the update I could give you. This time next week, I will have a final answer about this. I'm not revealing personal information. It's none of my business. But if Meltzer fucked up again, you guys will know about it, and that's it. I already said on Thursday, and I'll say it again here now. If he fucking made that shit up also, I don't truly know the answer yet. I know it's been claimed to me, but if he made that answer up too, I will say it here, and I will say it like this. The next time after that you will ever hear me comment about Meltzer again is if he is arrested, if he dies, or if he publicly apologizes for overall and admit that you are now an opiner. You don't have the connections you used to. just opine. That's what Bischoff does. That's what David Otunga does. That's what Maven does. That's what Stevie Richards does. That's what Jonathan Coachman does. All right? Jonathan Coachman screwed up a little bit last year. Your boy got scoops. Your boy got scoop. Your boy got nothing. You know, he got caught lying. But then Coach, to his credit, realized doesn't need to do that. You know, like no one additional is going to tune in simply because your boy got scoops. And then scoops end up being 100% lie. Your boy got bad scoops, you know. So just admit that you opine. Trust me, I would love to tune into Meltzer and know what he's saying to me is his opinion. He could honestly say, hey, Dave, what do you think about what happened with Brody King not being on Dynamite last week? I don't know, but you know what? In my opinion, you know, I don't think this would be a Tony call. If this was something that had to do with the fuck ice, then maybe Warner Brothers Discovery didn't want him on the following week because it would have sparked the chant, this and that. You're just expressing an opinion. And everybody would still cover it. But when you opened up with those three magic words, not Don is awesome, but with those three magic words, the deal is, you lied. And there's no way to cover it up. Just because you're an historian, just because you are a legend, doesn't mean that you're any street smart than anyone else. You could fucking school me to death about wrestling and moves and history, but, you know, you're not a very good liar. And you can't just keep ignoring it. You can't just alter this and adjust that. You know, that if it ends up next week, I unsubscribe to, you know, because I pay for his newsletter and stuff still. I got the email to be part of the awards. I didn't take part because I wasn't going to fill in all these blanks. If it was multiple choice, maybe. But if it ends up he lied with this, then the next time I report Meltzer, in fact, we'll do a contest every time. Unless he dies, gets arrested, we have to wish him get well, or he admits that what he has left is he's an opiner. Because, you know, and you're hurting Brian Alvarez too. Because everything that you share with Brian. And if Brian don't fucking speak up and call you out on your bullshit, like, I don't know where you got that from, you know, then you make Brian look worse too. So, all right. Now we could move far away from that. Far away from that. Thank you, Tommy, again about the AI stuff. Police Squad, is it just me, but I don't recall large demands for TK to suspend Brody King when he shat on all the police in 2023 in his abolished ICE shirt from last year? Yeah, I agree. There was some buzz, but not much. You know, listen, having hatred towards ICE is an opinion. You know, I have voiced my feelings on ICE, you know, and, you know, if people in unison wanted to, look, Australia fucking chanted it. Australia chanted it. You know, I don't know how they truly feel about ICE. I don't know if it was done to support Brody King or if it was to make a political stand. I don't know. But the bottom line is, you know, that's why I don't like politics in wrestling. You know, like, keep your views to yourself, you know, your preferences to yourself. Because it is very radical. Whether you like it or not, it is very radical. You know, to see, you know, like people, you know, that legitimately who have done some awful atrocities, especially when you hear about kids and everything else. And then you see people trying to, like, you know, like, protect those people. That just it's weird. It's weird. It just, we shouldn't have to be in this situation. That's what's fucked up about it. That's why I stay away from politics as much as I can. So it's fucked up. It's really fucked up. Okay, I did do the Grande stuff earlier. Kevin Milwaukee, thank you, my friend, for the super shout out. Great show. And shout out to the Segovias. How did WCW acquire Voodoo Child as Hogan's theme? Jimi Hendrix songs seem hard to get the rights to. Best way I could answer that is this. Jimi Hendrix music has been featured over the years, from cell phone commercials to fast food to other things. You license it just like Tony Khan licenses music for Jungle Boy, or licenses music for the Kenny Omega, or the Elite, or Orange Cassidy. You pay a fee. WWE did not want to pay that kind of a fee, especially when it comes to archive. Funny thing is, in this day and age, with no more DVD sales, no more Blu-ray sales, no more VHS tape sales, it's probably a hell of a lot cheaper to license music, especially as you go further away from the year that music came out. I mean, you're talking stuff that came out over 50 years ago. But I'll say this, whether you like Hogan or not, I'm sorry if this upsets you. I will say it to this day. When people say to me, DT, what's your favorite wrestling entrance of all time? You know, people say Ultimate Warrior, people say Real American, people will say Jericho, people will say Undertaker stuff. For me, my favorite intro of all time will be Hogan, Hollywood Hogan coming out to Jimi Hendrix, Voodoo Child. Just the aura about it, even with the NWO stuff, when you would hear Voodoo Child coming out and you hear, the New World Order, New World Order in the background, the entire entrance, you were into that song. That's why, and this is a true fact, when I started This Week in Wrestling History back in 2018, one of the things that I vowed to do, you have no idea how hard this is now. I vowed that whenever we played highlights of history, I would always play the original music. You ever hear an ECW memory on my shows, those episodes, it's always the original music. Hogan comes out in WWE, he doesn't come out to Real American. When he's about to fight Goldberg on Nitro, he doesn't come out to Real American. And he doesn't come out to, he's American, man. Whatever it was, I had to use original music. That was the thing and that's the biggest fucking challenge. Because I see on X, people posted memories and they don't even look for the original versions anymore. They'll just throw the WWE Network stuff. ECW, the worst. You fucking put New Jack memories and he's not coming out, Natural Born Killers. It's like, you got to be kidding me. So they licensed it. WWE licensed it. WCW licensed it. It's just that WWE did not want to license it to the point of, and you know what? That could have been part of the agreement, that it was only going to be for live shows. However, I do remember back in the day where even replays of pay-per-views, WWE would still do Voodoo Child. So that's what it is. They didn't want to just pay the money. So that's my take on that. All right. Sinapes, 2K, thank you for the $9.99, my friend. Thank you for the show with Joey. It was awesome to hear him again. Please invite him back on the show from time to time. You know, last Saturday was a one-night only thing, but there's been enough of you. And listen, I'm going to make this clear. There's a shitload of people out there that it'll probably take 6 months to a year before they realize that Joey and I did an episode again, because they don't tune into me like they used to. And, I haven't heard Joey in ages. But there's been enough positive reaction that I'm going to ask Joey if he wants to come back and do one, I think right before WrestleMania. Maybe we'll do predictions, but I think right before WrestleMania or right after WrestleMania. I'm going to talk to him about it, but I know that he would be into doing it. I mean, I already explained on some of the other shows why a weekly show with him is not possible. It's just that is a huge commitment, and there's a lot of other, things involved with it as well. Plus, as you heard, he doesn't have any equipment. That's kind of challenging. But, the bottom line is I will be inviting Joey back to do another one. And we'll probably do it right before WrestleMania. But I thank you for that. I really appreciate the feedback. So thank you. Scorpio 1117 was a Dynamite. Statlander and Thekla was sick. Look, It was the right call to have the main event. I saw a lot of complaining about Statlander losing. My answer to Statlander losing to Thekla is this. If you look at, I invite everyone to do this. And for some people that really had a problem with it, you should do this too. Go on AEW's title history section and look up the women's title. Look up the women's title. And look at the lineage. The last 2 years, I think there's only been 3 champions. Maybe 4 at the most. You know, Saraya had a very short run. Hikaru Shida had a much shorter 1 or 2 reigns. You'll be surprised. But you'll see Statlander, had 3-4 months. Toni Storm had, actually, believe it or not, I think Toni Storm had it for like, no. Wait, what am I saying? I think Toni Storm had it for like 6 months. And then Statlander had it for like 5 months. Like, you will see the last bunch of reigns, they're all around 120, 140 days. It's just that what you got to understand, and I'm not saying this to, defend AEW, but, you're only as good as your opponent and your storyline. And the thing is that Statlander, over the years, it's been a little bit rough timing. She, picked up where Jade Cargill left off. Then you had an injury or 2. And then they turned her heel out of nowhere. And I remember when they turned her heel, we were like, what? Why? Like, it just felt fake and forced. And, it just, and eventually she turned babyface again. And it's like, okay, put it this way, Kris Statlander's awesome. Kris Statlander is one of the top women in that company. Some people have asked me, would she go to WWE? I don't know if she wants that kind of commitment. There are a lot of people in AEW that the schedule they have in AEW is good enough for them. A little bit of touring, once in a while going overseas, but not this eat, sleep, shit WWE 24/7, 365. To be able to sleep in your own bed a couple of days a week, to be able to once in a while work an indie show, to be able to, kick back and, just take it easy and just live somewhat of a normal life and not that pressure that, every little part of your body is under a microscope. When I saw Thekla's interview with Jericho last week, and she's like, I'm not one to work with, I don't work well with bosses. No, I think that was just her having some fun with it. But the thing is that there's some wrestlers out there that would love to have a WWE career, would love to have that kind of lineage and legacy. But with that comes an insane amount of dedication and time. And it's not just physical, it's mental. And there's some people that, they're in a good place with AEW because they don't have to have that overload, that pressure. It is an insane amount of pressure. And, with Statlander, I don't know if she wants that kind of pressure. We don't know. There's several women in AEW. I say to myself, I could see them in WWE, but I don't know if they truly want to have that kind of level. There are some people that crave it. There are some people like, bring it on, man. It's not easy. And I mean, my God, look at Royce Keys and what transpired the first 2 weeks. He didn't get cheered much in Saudi Arabia because they don't get AEW. Get the fuck out of here. Saudi Arabia just wanted all their favorites, the big stars, the big names. Candice LeRae got less of a pop than Hobbs. Some people, I'm just throwing a random name out there. If you're very low on the food chain, or if you're not, you're not going to get much of a reaction. That's the way it is. There was nothing but his was under a microscope. But Thekla is awesome, man. Like, if you don't give her the title now, what are you going to do? Put a tag title on her? Create another title? Like, I think people read a little bit too deep with this. I think Kris Statlander will be fine, but you also have to say to yourself, okay, she's been in that company for quite a many years. What do you do? If you look at Orange Cassidy, they're kind of having a little bit of a difficult time, like how to mingle. Like they're doing a little bit of comedy now with Tony Storm. Now Roderick Strong just walked out on him. You could see some people where you're starting to say like, oh, just something feels missing. That's what happens when you're in one area for a very, very long time. So the Sprite, to freshen it up a little bit with a Thekla title run, yeah, fine with it. Down the line, Megan Bain. In short order, we should see Mercedes Moné, get involved again. We'll see where it goes with that. I think people just analyze it a little bit too deep. I think the Grande Americano stuff we said at the beginning of the show is one of the perfect examples of that. I sort of reaction, I'm like, you forget the character? You forget he's a heel in AAA? You forget that everything about the character is fake? When Chad Gable was cutting that promo in AAA and he's calling Kaiser fake, it's satire because they're both fucking fake. It's just that Chad Gable is jealous that someone else. It's kind of like what I used to say, you can't bullshit a bullshitter. He's a fake, just like Kaiser's a fake, but Kaiser out-faked him. That's the beauty about it. Just think about this. We've said this for the last 3 weeks now. Just envision a mask versus mask match at WrestleMania. A Grande Americano versus a Grande Americano. Two fucking people that are not lucha libre, that they're not from Mexico. Neither one. It's almost like it's not mocking because the fans love it. AAA fans are eating up Kaiser, doing what he's doing. Why not? There's nothing wrong with that. We've had masked wrestlers over the years. We've had Italians portray themselves as Muslim. We've had, we had Italian, even an American Indian. There's no requirement that you must be this, you must be that. That's what makes the satire and the ridiculousness of Chad Gable's promo that much better. Everything coming out of his mouth is like, what? What are you talking about? You're just as much of a fake. He's a heel in AAA. It's going to get even more over as a heel in AAA. Kaiser is the babyface. That's why if they have the mask versus mask at WrestleMania, there's only one person that should lose that match, clearly. And the person that should lose is Chad Gable. Let Kaiser continue doing what he's doing in AAA. Yeah. Yeah, the Samoan is a Japanese guy, Yokozuna. There's nothing wrong with it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So, but I'm glad you enjoyed Thekla and Statlander. They definitely tore it up. Jim Con, Vince modeled the WWF in the 80s and the 90s after MTV. That has stayed the same even through TikTok, and the product seemed dated. Yes, but the thing is, sometimes you go with what works. You go on cruise control. You get complacent. You kind of like are afraid sometimes to think a little outside the box. And listen, when you think of WWF, the 80s were fine. Up until 1993. I think 1992, 1993 is where WWF started to have some issues. Because, and you know what's great about it? When you had Hulkamania in the mid-80s, the Rock and Wrestling connection, that treaded water and did fine, carried same momentum into the late 80s. Reagan was still president. Then the late 80s, George Bush came into office. Then in 1990, you have what happened with, Iraq, Desert Storm. And then you have Slaughter turning heel, and Hogan gets a little bit of a rebirth, as the superhero. And then you get to around 1992, and it's like, okay, this is starting to you could see it reflecting society. Listen, I'm one of the weird ones out there that like Cornette and Vince Russo. Always have. When Vince Russo used to talk about how wrestling, when he would write, it reflected real life. And I agree. Mid-90s, Girls Gone Wild, Jerry Springer, going against authority, Bill Clinton getting oral sex, in mid to late 90s. You look at society at that time. You got, it was a change. MMA was still underground. So a lot of wrestling reflects society. And in 1992 and 1993, you started to see a shift. What's so fucking fascinating about it is by 1995, that's only 2 years. By 1995, the goody, great American, real American, superhero, all that, in a matter of 2-3 years, the country would do almost like a 180. It's like now the superhero is, somebody who's getting laid, or girls partying at night, and Jerry Springer and Maury and all the other shows out there. It's crazy to remember 1995. And that's when ECW started to figure it out hardcore wise in 94. But 1995 was a change, man. There was a change in this country, and it's kind of amazing to think what the wrestling world looked like in 1992 and what the wrestling world would look like only 3 years later. Vince took a few more years. You had some horrible gimmicks. By 1997, then they started to see, okay, we have to change with the times. So, yeah. And by the way, speaking of stuck in the mud, I got something to share with you. Little teaser for tomorrow's show. And we will talk about TKO having a meeting last week about WrestleMania ticket sales. We will have some fun in 5 minutes from now. We will definitely get into some stuff no one else has gotten into. You got to just use common sense. But there's something else. I promise you, because for those that don't know, TKO had a meeting last week with WWE addressing how ticket sales this year are slower than last year. But I actually have numbers, and I actually did some research, and I got some fascinating stuff to share with you. So, Jim Kahn says most of wrestling news is just fake. He's convinced. Believe it or not, a lot of it is exaggerated, no question. But I will tell you, over the years, I have criticized every show out there. Back in 2005, 6, and 7, I would make fun of every podcast out there until I finally got through my head, have everybody tune into me, and Kev, and even Joey does, tune into us because we're good, not because everybody else is bad. And that was the turning point of our shows. But even over the years with reporting, I would criticize and rip almost every single person out there. Now I see who is legit and who's not. Listen, it was not that long ago that I would criticize WrestleVotes. I'm like, it just felt like somebody, random on a message board anonymously, like putting stuff out there. And it's like half of it is right and half of it's wrong. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of like what we could do. Remember my sausage stuff? Remember the story when Brock Lesnar walked out when Vince resigned? I went viral. And my series of reports then was to show everyone how easy it is to put out a story that sounds like it's real, but if you just use common sense and write it the right way, everybody will believe it. Everybody believed my story until people realized, why is he saying sausage? That was a funny thing. I got a DM from a legit wrestling news site at the time, and like, why are you writing sausage? Then I told the person what I did. And he was like, oh, LOL. But meanwhile, he was probably saying, wow, you're a dick. You're a dick. I admit I would never do that again. But I've learned over the years that no, some of these people do have legit connections. And you talk to some people in wrestling, and you kind of find out like who gives out some dirt to who and who gives a little nugget here. And even when I became friendly with 2 people in the Performance Center in Florida, and would give me little nuggets here and there. Nothing that would get somebody in trouble, obviously, but even wrestlers that would say, look, please, I'll tell you this, but don't say it publicly. And I'm like, fine, my word is my bond. So not all wrestling news is fake. People out there that make serious money on it, they work their ass off. Absolutely. The challenge is sometimes you're intentionally fed fake stuff because sometimes they want to rat out a mole. And that's happened over the years. You guys remember way back when, this was around the Mr. Mystery days. Somebody in the WWE was leaking out some dirt to the PW insiders and some others. And listen, Dave Shearer, Mike Johnson, Buck Woodward back in the day, even others. I used to rip them apart and say some nasty stuff, and now I realize how legit Dave Shearer is. He'll never accept my apology, but, I feel bad. That guy is legit. Mike Johnson is legit. They do have connections. It's not a jealousy thing on my part, but there's a lot of people out there that do work hard and have made this a living. There are other people out there that are trying to make a living without having the sources and the connections. They'll just react on everybody else's stuff. And that's fine and everything until you realize that they don't care if it's true or not. That's where it runs into problems. And Cross getting let go from WWE last year, the contract stuff, that was the saddest example of for me recently. Because I saw people that I'm even good friends with that knew the truth, that knew Cross, they wanted him to sign the contract and he wanted to, take care of Scarlett too. And I've mentioned this numerous times over the last year. WWE's like, we'll worry about Scarlett later. It was almost like a used car salesman trying to sell you a car with an oil leak. And you're ready to sign. You're like, but wait, there's an oil leak. Don't worry about it. Just sign. We'll fix it next week. Don't worry about it. Same thing with Cross. Yeah, but what about Scarlett? Don't worry about Scarlett. We'll talk about that in the future. No, just for now. Sign. Oh man, I'm not doing that. And there were people out there that knew exactly what happened. And for 5 days until Cross did a little bit more revealing, for 5 days, is it a work? Is it a shoot? Is it a shoot that turned into a work? Is it a work that turned? And I'm like, motherfucker, you know the truth. And you really need it that bad? That's the problem I have these days. That's the problem I have these days. And little by little, those people are starting to get hurt over it. Let's be honest. There's some places out there, if you look closely, go back a year or two and look at their number of viewers now, and it's half, even less than half. Now they got to put 11 videos out a day just to try to keep the revenue going the same. And unfortunately, for a lot of them out there, I run into the same problem. I don't have sexy tits. I can't put cleavage out there. If I start showing you my tits, forget it. I can't sit here with a sexy outfit and, get people to glue into me just because I look nice. I have a face for radio. You see it slowly. And you see some podcast out there, my God, I would love to mention this one person. There is a show out there. I'm not kidding, man. They just interviewed, I'll give you a hint. They just interviewed a WWE superstar. Big name. We covered it on a recent episode. And if you go look at their YouTube channel, they have, I think, 500,000 subscribers. I won't say the person, but I'll say that they're affiliated with a betting website. 500,000 subscribers, and their videos average about 2,000 views. Yeah, they bring somebody on once in a while. It gets 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. But you're talking about 500,000 subscribers, and you're getting videos that get 900 views. And at one point, they were much bigger. I'm not saying that they're not credible, but especially when you are just playing, and people get tired of it. All right. Horse player. He ain't horsing around. Hello, DT. Who in the WWE is feeding the likes of Dave Meltzer and Sean Ross Sapp inside information about creative plans and why? Well, here's the thing. With Dave Meltzer, I do believe that his contacts, I'll say it like this. I'll say this in a respectful way. A lot of you already know this, but when TKO took over, and Kevin and I got this directly from two people that worked in that company. And when TKO took, and it's not Cross and the usual, but gave us a little info about it. That's why with the Drew McIntyre, that's why Drew McIntyre is such a master at what he does. There was a couple of things that they instilled. Number one, if there's even one fan around, you treat your surroundings as if you're on camera. That's why Drew McIntyre, he stormed out of the building. He got into his car, drove away. His contract is up in the air. He walked out and busted open, told everybody, fuck off. People thought all this shit was real because as long as there's even one person around, and if you want any little incentive, what about, the fans that saw Cody and Kevin Owens by the tour bus? Kevin Owens punched Cody in the face. This was leading into Saturday Night's main event last year, title for title. If there's even one fan around, you treat your surroundings as if the camera is on. That's number one. Number two, we don't give away our business. We don't leak business. Little things here and there, they're not talking about that. They're talking about executive stuff, big stuff that could influence big money. They don't do that. And there are people in that company that abso-fucking-lutely are not going to risk their job to leak to me, anybody, Meltzer, anybody, dirt. And trust me, over the years, there's been a fake story put out once in a while to see who reports it. And they'll feed, there's been a couple of times in the past that some very low-end WWE people were told a little idea about something, and there was no intention whatsoever of it happening on WWE television. And then sure enough, it would leak out. And then they would figure out, boom, we found our mole. As far as Sean Ross Sapp goes, I have no idea who Fightful contacts in WWE. They definitely have a lot of friends or wrestlers there that when something happens, they'll say, hey, what's your opinion about this? Or, what do you think about this? Or what's your gut feeling like that? And, nobody's on record. And the thing is, I don't know, who, but I do know that WWE, just like AEW and others, they do have PR. They do have spokespeople. And if they want to verify something legit, doesn't mean that they'll always respond, but a lot of times they will respond. And, that's why if you see me, I don't try to be an asshole, but sometimes being an asshole does lead to results. How many times did we used to say, pay attention when Dave Meltzer, for example, you have no idea how many people who has said to me and Kev over the last year or two, privately, all he had to do was ask. Some people have publicly said it. Gail Kim, I think, recently said it. Ivar with the neck surgery. You've had numerous people publicly say to Dave, why didn't you just message me? Why didn't you just DM me? You wanted the answer. Why didn't you just reach out to me? And I ask you, how come you see this stuff come out there and you don't always see, we reached out to Royce Keys for comment and received no reply. We reached out to Gail Kim for clarification and received no reply. Because a lot of people out there don't want the fucking answer. Because if you have a story and it's juicy and you want to put it out there, you put it out there. If you turn around and say, let me DM this person to see if it's true, and then the person comes back to you and says it's not true, then you're like, fuck, I can't put it out there now. Person gave me the answer. So they rather not even ask. They'll put the story out there. It ends up being wrong. Then the person's like, why didn't you just reach out to me and ask? The AJ Styles stuff from way back when. Remember that? That was one of the most ridiculous things I had ever seen. AJ Styles. You had a wrestling news site out there that said, I am happy to report that AJ Styles re-signed his contract with WWE. AJ Styles reached out to the fucking wrestling news site and said to him, says, listen, I didn't sign anything yet. I'm, out of courtesy, I'm giving you straight from me. Now, you would have thought that that wrestling news site would have jerked off. Holy shit, AJ Styles reached out to me directly. And you go on your website and you brag, you say, AJ Styles reached out to us directly and stated that he is not yet signed. You know what that wrestling news site did? They emailed AJ Styles back and said, we stand by our sources. We stand by our sources, calling AJ Styles a liar. There's a lot of people out there that don't want the truth because it kills their story. How many podcasters out there will clickbait on YouTube this very, very catchy fucking, story, and it's not even verified. And then it turns out to be fake. And then their excuse was, I was just reacting to what that person said. Look at Dave Meltzer with the Brody King, Warner Brothers Discovery. How many people, breaking news, Warner Brothers Discovery takes Brody King off television. You didn't even know if it was true. You didn't even bother trying to find out if it was true. Somebody could, at least right. We reached out to Warner Brothers Discovery for clarification and received no reply. Yeah, you'd look kind of funny when you find out that they replied to everybody else, but at least you make that attempt. That's why when we exposed WrestleNomics, I know it's very unpopular. They're nothing personal against them, but when they used to put out their quarter-hour ratings, and then people would cut and paste it, and they would call everybody out like, do not post our stuff without giving us credit, this and that. And I went public and said, who do you credit? Where do you get yours from? And then all of a sudden, they started to credit it. And then when we got the Nielsen story about, the change to the how they come up with their numbers, that's why months before we said bye-bye quarter hours. Before anyone else even know. Why do we keep getting that right? Because you do the real research. Not everybody wants to know the answer. So I do believe they have legitimate sources. But I think in the case of Dave Meltzer and some others, they have burned some bridges over the years. And I think sometimes, listen, I truthfully believe sometimes people will intentionally give Dave fake information to embarrass him. And that's fucked up. That's fucked up. If Dave is going to go on a message board and say, I have exclusive numbers about Warner Brothers Discovery and AEW's numbers, and you find out he read it on a message board, that's on him. But when someone actually emails him and says, here's the information, and you're just doing it to embarrass him, that's fucked up. I think that is fucked up. All right, very quickly, how long we've gone so far? We have gone, we still got a half hour. WrestleMania 42. Ticket sales down 10,000 from this time last year. TKO emergency meeting with WWE addressing our tickets are down 10,000 compared to last year. Here is some factoids for all of you out there and a little bit of common sense as well. This time last year, WWE would have had about 35,000, about 40,000 tickets sold. This year it's like 35,000. They're down 5,000 on night one and 5,000 on night two. There's a couple of reasons behind it. I am not a fan of TKO. If you've heard my other shows especially, we have exposed what their ticket prices are outside of the United States. Are we jealous? Yes, I'm jealous. Absolutely. To charge $175 for somebody in the United States to meet a wrestler, but you go to Saudi Arabia and you charge $6. You would think that the kids, the teenagers, the 20-something-year-olds getting to meet WWE superstars in Saudi Arabia, you would think that they walked up with no shoes on and saying, could you sign my ripped up shoes because I can't afford clothes? And then you realize that the average salary and the cost of living in Saudi Arabia is not that far off from the United States. Like, there's no slave labor. I mean, slave labor everywhere, but you would think that they were going to like a country of everybody's homeless and they're living in huts and everything like that. I mean, and the average salary is very similar to United States. Then you look at Mexico. Mexico is the opposite. Mexico, the cost of living and the money that people make it's sick how little it is. So, when you hear some wrestlers in AAA making, less than $100,000, maybe less than $50,000 a year, and then, they get a little bit of a raise from WWE and they're almost like crying about it. The cost of living in Mexico is much different. So you're not going to go to Mexico and have ticket prices at even $1,000. In the United States, it'd be $10,000. Over there, it might be $300. You go to other countries, remember, my friends, did you hear many people in Paris complaining about WWE ticket prices? You had some people on social media bitching about it. Did you see, when they toured overseas just now? I came everywhere else. Did you see a bunch of, UK fans, online bitching and complaining, showing screenshots of their tickets? I can't believe I had to mortgage my fucking house to go watch this. Nobody. They charge a hell of a lot less overseas compared to us. So you say to yourself, okay, what's going on with this year compared to last year? Yes, it is true. Their ticket sales are down about 5,000 for each night. Now, I don't need to be a wrestling journalist, but it's kind of shocking that from Meltzer, everyone else, nobody fucking stopped and said, gee, at this time last year, John Cena just fucking turned heel. Yes, Travis Scott stuff sucked. Yes, Rock stuff was confusing. But you had John Cena turn fucking heel and was taking on Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. Gee, you think there might be some additional interest because we would never in our lifetime ever thought John Cena would turn heel again? I mean, come on, man. Come on. We know what ended up happening. All right. You had Rollins, Reigns, Punk. Jey Uso won the Royal Rumble and fucking, listen, I want to make this clear. Elimination Chamber last year is about to happen. Didn't happen yet. But John Cena still, you had him entering the chamber. There was a lot of unknown people. John Cena was one of the favorites to win the chamber last year, if not the favorite, if you look at the odds. A lot of people had John Cena. Go look at Las Vegas, look at the wrestling news sites last year. My point is this. You can't compare the optics of WrestleMania 42 to WrestleMania 41 because you had Jey Uso with the eat shit challenging Gunther. You had John Cena who had just lost the Royal Rumble and proclaimed himself in the Elimination Chamber, and he was the favorite or the second favorite to win it. And you think of the optics of CM Punk coming off of Survivor Series and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and everything else. We're 1 year later and wrestling over, let me put it like this. Wrestling 12 months before WrestleMania 41 was a lot better than the 12 months that we have had leading into WrestleMania 42. So when you look at the optics of last year at this time compared to this year of this time, last year, John Cena was proclaiming the Elimination Chamber and fight at WrestleMania. You had 1 year less of storyline crap that we have been fed for 12 months. Not everything has been crap. Let's be honest. Jey Uso 12 months ago was a lot different than the Jey Uso now. He had just won the Rumble, and yes, it got criticism, no question. But he had an insane amount of support online. So that's a part of it. But the biggest part of it is the prices. The ticket prices that TKO has changed in 1 year is disgusting. It's bad enough you hear the stories that in Las Vegas you got to pay $12 for a bottle of water, okay? I have in front of me, from my research, WrestleMania 41 ticket prices compared to this year, just to give you an idea. Now, remember, they were in Vegas. They've done Vegas. So it's not like, it's suddenly they're going there and there's a... Let me give you some comparisons. Last year, the cheapest ticket you could get for WrestleMania 41 was $130. This year, so far, the cheapest price is double, $260. This is not scalper. This is the actual prices. Section 400, the nosebleeds. Last year, the average ticket price was $450. This year, the average ticket price is $850. Now, just imagine you're a family of four and you want to go for even one night. You're now paying double for each ticket, not including everything else you got to spend from hotel to food to transportation, everything else. You want to sit around the Section 300 area? The ticket prices last year averaged $650. This year, they're almost $1,200. Section 200, the average price this year is last year was $850. This year it is $1,300. Section 100, last year the average ticket price was $1,000. This year it's $1,500. And then the best part, the floor seating. Last year, the average ticket price was around 5 G's. This year, the average ticket price is 9 G's. You're talking in some states a fucking house. You get tickets for 4? You want to sit on the floor? I mean, they have, in some cases, doubled their ticket prices in 1 year. And what have they given us over the last 12 months? A year ago, they had just started Netflix. There was a shitload of buzz. You had, perception of a lot of people a lot different 1 year earlier. So, and then on top of it, you have Cena entering Elimination Chamber at this time. The odds-on favorite to win it, challenging Cody, was definitely going to be the case because Jey Uso wasn't going to challenge Cody. And then you have the heel turn on top of it. So you look at ticket prices from this year to last year, and you look at the optics of what WWE has been. And I also believe you had Triple H for a year that, Raw is going to be, it's going to be a new era. It's going to be earth-shattering. It's going to be totally different. It's going to be epic. We're going to have major surprises. You did that with WrestlePalooza. You did that over and over again. I think people now feel like he's crying wolf. And you have priced WrestleMania out of the realm for so many people out there. So, and then you look at combo tickets. Combo tickets. Last year, the cheapest price you could get for a combo ticket was about $550. It's a little more than 2 individual tickets because you were getting the same seat for both nights, from what I understand. This year, the average price for a combo ticket, the cheapest, is $800. So you take 1 year of mediocre product that we have witnessed. There's been a lot that we have not been thrilled about the last 12 months. You also remove John Cena from that equation. You have a year more of Yeet. Roman Reigns has been a fucking part-timer more than anything else, if we're being honest. You look at the fucking Usos, and they're fighting Alpha Academy right now. Gunther, we don't even know what Gunther's going to do. You look at a lot of the wrestlers 1 year ago to today, and that, along with ticket prices, is the reason why they're down. But it's only 5,000 tickets on each night. All right? You start doing little promotions like we hear they're going to do, oh, for the next 5 days, buy your tickets 30% off. Buy this, you get this. See, from what I understand, what someone was telling me over the last week is that TKO is very similar to what we've talked about in the past with like Disney, which makes sense. And even Mohegan Sun and some other, vacation destinations. And what I mean by that is this. You go to Disney, you'll pay an insane amount of money for food or whatever else. Let's just focus on food for a minute. You go to Disney, you'll pay an insane amount of money for food. Unless, you go into a special restaurant where fucking Snow White is walking around. Of course you're going to pay extra, but if you go into a regular place, they charge you a crazy amount of money. When I used to go to Mohegan Sun with my wife before we got our doggies. By the way, today's 2-year anniversary. We got Bella. But when we used to go to Mohegan Sun, we used to go into the restaurants there, and the prices were disgusting how expensive they were. But when they brought you food, the plate was like this. And their mindset is, we're going to charge you a lot more money, but we're going to give you too much food. If you turn around and say, just give me the children's special. I don't need to fucking have 9 waffles. No, this is what it is, and we give you a shitload of food for it. They'd rather charge you more money and give you more of the product than to simply just cut the price in half and cut the food in half. And that's what TKO is trying to do. You will see on occasion a little deal. Like, buy your ticket by Friday and get 10% off. But what they are doing instead is they're trying to entice the packages, entice the on-location stuff, entice the WWE world. You just heard them add Steve Austin to it. So they would rather, instead of just, cutting ticket prices back to what they were a year ago, they want to offer you more. So will they add a celebrity? Probably. Will they add a couple of names that we probably wouldn't expect? Probably. But in the idea that TKO is going to slash ticket prices, that ain't happening. That is not happening. That's not what this meeting was either. They're addressing concerns. But, Peter Pollock with the IQ of a pebble could be in a meeting this past week and say, Ariel, with all due respect, sir, but the ticket prices are up 70%. Could it be that people do want to go, but they can't afford it? Somebody brain dead in a fucking hospital in hospice could figure that out. But their mindset is, there's people out there that'll pay it. That's the thing. There are people out there that'll pay it. The question is, how do you get them? How do you get them? So, it's not my pay grade to figure that out, but that's what's going on right now. That's what's going on right now. And listen, I couldn't break this down even further, but it's the combination of John Cena's retirement tour, being the odds-on favorite to win the Elimination Chamber. And remember too, The Rock was lingering. Remember, The Rock wanted Cody to almost like impregnate him. There was a lot going on a year ago at this time. So yeah, sure. Cena's going to be on there. Rock is teasing stuff. We had 1 year less of Yeet. You had, shit going on. Now a year later, some of it's like, So, yeah. robbing Peter Pollock to pay Paul. I like that. So that's the deal. All right, we got about 20 minutes though. I want to give a special shout out to Austin Nance. Austin is not only one of our great moderators here, but he has been a member for almost 5 years, 59 months, and I appreciate you very much. I know you support what I do big time. It carries over to Patreon, social media here, memberships. Believe me, it's not easy to stay afloat these days with 95 million podcasts out there all competing. But I appreciate your support. Everybody, I appreciate your support. Dorian Mesa, thank you to you, my friend. 53 months as a channel member here. And I really appreciate you also. And Havili has been here for 34 months, but is also one of our big-time players on Patreon, too. So I thank you very much as well. And he asked, if WWE had some balls, what is the match most likely to happen? The Lucha Brothers versus the Usos, Cody versus Randy, or Gunther versus Ilya Dragunov? Can I say something before I answer his question? Any of you feel this way as I? When I watched Tonga Loa no-sell Ilya like he did on SmackDown, I wanted to turn the TV off. I'm like, I could see if Tonga Loa had a shield vest, like one of those, or when Bret Hart had that fucking metal thing under him when Goldberg speared him in WCW, and Goldberg was laid out, and he fucking, like, I'm watching Ilya, who had some of the fucking stiffest, beautiful looking chops, and he's hitting Tonga Loa. And I took it personal. It was almost like Tonga Loa was looking at me through my television. And Tonga Loa was saying to me, Dontony, you fat bastard, here, see, they're pushing me, asshole. They're not letting me go, asshole. I'm not going to get injured again, motherfucker. See, Ilya's going to get buried. I took that personal. Tonga Loa, you're fucked up, man. You're disturbed. That motherfucker, and listen, it's not his fault, but I'm watching that and I'm like, that angered me. And listen, now, see, look, I'm red. That hurt. Well, that's the consolation. You know what? If there's any consolation of what I just said, I guarantee you when Tonga Loa undressed to take a shower, that he probably had Ilya's fucking handprint on his chest. He had his fucking handprint on his chest. Good. I have nothing personal against Tonga Loa. I really don't. It's been a running joke on the shows. You know, like, to me, MFT stands for motherfucking Tonga Loa. That's what MFT stands for to me. I don't know. I've just never liked him in WWE. I don't want to see him released, but oof, man, that was rough. I don't know if anybody feels that same way as me, but I was like, man, shit. Like, oh, not good. Anyway, if WWE had balls, I don't think they need to have balls to do this, but which one do I think Cody versus Randy has to happen. Do you all agree? Like, at some point, Cody versus Randy needs to happen? I mean, I don't want it to be friend versus friend. I mean, I'd like for it to have some other circumstances, but Randy is so in legendary status right now. I don't know if they would turn him heel again, even though I kind of think they will. Gunther versus Ilya, they'll do that again. As long as Ilya could survive whatever the fuck is going on with his booking right now in WWE, when they tour overseas again, if they go to Berlin, or if they go to that area of the world, they will absolutely give them Gunther versus Ilya. You will see Gunther versus Ilya in Germany, somewhere. They will definitely do that. In fact, I'm pretty sure they did do it at least once in one of those areas. But I think of those three matches, I think Lucha Bros versus Usos is the least likely because they're both hardcore baby faces right now, and obviously Rey Fenix is on SmackDown. But of the three, I think Cody versus Randy would probably be the most likely to happen, because Gunther and Ilya, I think, would just be a regional match. They're on different brands also. So Tristan is asking me my thoughts on Kane setting Jim Ross on fire back then. I'm not kidding when I say this, and I know this is messed up, and for all of you that heard the intro last week with playing a flashback in a Minority Report, we used to joke about Jim Ross a lot. Obviously, it led to my worst moment in podcasting hotline history. You know, people have said to me, since I've been doing this since 97, what's like one thing I would take back? It was my Bell's palsy joke directed at Jim Ross. I still to this day am beyond guilty for it. And when he reached out and told me like some of the details behind his Bell's palsy, this is not a joke. If any of you don't believe me, go ask him. I bought so many fucking bottles of Chipotle ketchup at the time and barbecue sauce. We were giving away like sets of Jim Ross stuff on Patreon just because I just felt obligated to buy loads of fucking JR bottled stuff out of guilt for what I said. It was the worst thing I ever said on the shows. Trust me, people have desperately tried to get me to say the N-word over the years, like, we got him, now we could cancel him out. You won't get me to say something like that. It's not in my vocabulary. But, you know, I said some pretty awful shit back in the day. But I will say this, when he got roasted by Kane, you know, it gave me flashbacks of me being friends with Nicole Bass. You know, for people that don't know, I used to be friends with Nicole Bass. She lived in my neighborhood. We used to hang out in front of her house late at night, blasting boomboxes in the 80s. We used to go with her husband. They're both deceased now, but we used to go with her husband in his car to Astoria, Queens, and he would buy these exotic mice to feed his snake. You know, we used to hang out with them. And one time, this was around, I think, 1999, one of my old friends in the hotline world, Captain Ivan, had a big falling out with Nicole Bass, where she threatened to beat the shit out of him. And one time we had a 4th of July barbecue. I'm pretty sure this was 1999. We had 4th of July barbecue, and we were barbecuing across the street from a house, and they were roasting this giant pig. Doing this, and Nicole Bass is there, and she knew I had a wrestling hotline at the time. And she was asking me, she's like, how's that going? Do you make any money off of it? I said, yeah. I said, by the way, I said, I heard you, you were going to do an interview. You talked to one of my friends, Captain Ivan. And she fucking threatened to put me on the fucking skewer. She's like, you're friends with that motherfucker? And I'm like, I've never like met him. I mean, this is before XPW stuff. I'm like, you know, we're friendly to you. That stalker. She's like, your friend. I'll roast you right now, you fat fuck. And then that's when I learned the story of what Captain Ivan did with her. Fucked up, man. So when I saw Jim Ross getting set on fire by Kane, it gave me flashbacks of that roasted pig. Like, I don't know. I pictured JR with an apple in his mouth and Kane doing this. Just being honest. I have nothing but respect and love for Jim Ross. I know it doesn't sound it. You know, we used to just crack jokes. I used to crack jokes without thinking first. And I realized, not good. Not good. Few people are asking me, what did I actually say? Should I really say it? All right. Anybody remember Joe Buttafuoco? He was a car mechanic in Long Island, Queens, that was sleeping with an underage teenager by the name of Amy Fisher. I think she was 16 at the time. And he would take her to the Bayshore Motor Inn Hotel. Me and my friends actually went there once. And he would sleep with her, and she fell in love with him. And she showed up at his house with a gun. And Joe Buttafuoco's wife, Mary Jo, opened the door. And the minute she opened the door, this girl, Amy Fisher, fired, hit her right in the face, paralyzed half her face because of it. And, you know, she would end up going to jail, Amy Fisher, Joe Buttafuoco. I don't remember exactly what happened with him. Remember, he had the celebrity boxing thing with China, Joni Laura. So anyway, long story short, back when Jim Ross first had the bout with Bell's palsy, I think it was Joey 924 actually had brought it up. He's like, you know, you see what happened with JR? I was like, yeah, I feel bad for him. I was like, you know what? We could hook him up with Mary Jo. I think they'd be perfect together. Because Mary Jo Buttafuoco's face was half paralyzed. So I cracked the joke that I think Jim Ross would be perfect for her. Or I think it was like Mary Jo, like because, you know, she divorced Joey Buttafuoco, like who could we hook her up with? And I think I said, let's hook her up with Jim Ross. They'd be perfect together. They both got, So Jim Ross reached out to me and told me about, I think his father got very sick, and the stress of his father being ill, he got Bell's palsy. And I was like, oh my God, I am so sorry. If you see me now, I'm not laughing about any of that. It was just really, really fucked up, man. Worst thing I ever said. He even brought it up on his Jim Ross report. That's how I found out about it. He first went on his Jim Ross report, and he didn't address me by name, but he said, to the person out there that thought he was cute, talking about my Bell's palsy, and he told the story, I think, about his father. And then he reached out to me, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I didn't know how, and he accepted my apology, man. He accepted my apology, and that was a change for me afterwards. It was like, all right, that's way too deep, and never joked about that ever again. Doesn't mean he didn't look like a roasted pig with the Kane stuff. I mean, look, I was, I almost was a roasted pig too. So, or if his mother, whoever it was a family member. I don't remember who the family member was. Bottom line is, should have never said it. Worst thing I've ever said on the shows. 316 MMA. My thoughts on the death of James Vanderbeek. Did I like Varsity Blues? And thoughts on Savannah Guthrie news. Well, as far as Savannah Guthrie, I have said this a few times this week. I think her mother's deceased. I think her mother's deceased. It's just awful. I find it a little strange how you don't have cameras on blocks and like I live in New York, so obviously it's a little bit different. But, I've seen some people locally get arrested and they fucking got footage from like cameras from like 3 blocks away, 4 blocks away, 6 blocks away. It's like, it's kind of strange that there is absolutely nothing. Like, I think she's deceased. I just, you grab somebody 84, I think she's 84, right? Like, if you demand ransom, I mean, by now, it would have been done. You don't keep someone for 2-3 weeks, especially she doesn't have the medicine that she needs. I just believe that, unfortunately, there was, she's deceased. And I also believe that it happened probably weeks ago. And it's awful. It's awful. It's really sad to see. Very, very terrible. Very terrible. As far as what you said about James Vanderbeek, what was it, Dawson's Creek, I think it was? I was never a fan of that show. I never really was like, I think this is the best way I could describe it. I was never a fan of his work, but I did watch movies that he was in. And when I saw that he died, I was like, oh yeah, holy shit. Then you hear about, his cancer. I think it was with the colitis or something with his colon. And, that's it. Anything like that hits home for me because of my age. It really like puts in perspective that, and then I saw that interview where he said that getting cancer was the best thing that could happen. It's like, how do you say that? Like just a really sad story. Sad story. But I was never into Dawson's Creek. I mean, I do remember that show clearly. And he was never on my radar. But when I was looking at his filmology and seeing someone, I was like, oh shit, yeah, I do remember that. I remember this. I remember Varsity Blues. I remember, yeah. Way too young. Benjamin in the chat was an extra in Varsity Blues. And it's how him and his brother got their PlayStation. That is cool, man. Because we would hear things back in the day that you would be an extra, but you wouldn't actually get money, but you would get like something else instead. A lot of you may remember back in the mid-2000s, I think it was 2005, that me and my friends were this close of being an extra in The Sopranos. I was never a fan of The Sopranos at the time. I just never got into that show. A lot of you remember, when we end up having dinner with Big Pussy afterwards. That was right around the time he was accused of throwing his girlfriend out of a moving car and stuff like that, which is sick in itself. And my father was very close friends with, Paulie Walnuts. A lot of you on Patreon have seen, my father was very good friends with Paulie Walnuts personally. And there's pictures of Paulie Walnuts at my father's house having a barbecue, Christmas party. He was a big fan and a friend of the family. Paulie Walnuts. When he died, that hit home. That hit home. So, but I was never a fan of Sopranos. Just when back it was like 05, like a whole bunch of my friends were gonna go try it. I'm like, why don't you come? And I thought about it and I was like, yeah, I think it'd be pretty cool. But I was like, I don't watch Sopranos. I'm not interested. So I didn't go. So Gotti, the HBO movie, is very good. I've seen Gotti documentaries over the years. I mean, I always loved the Netflix one, because we're in it. So that was pretty fucking cool. I still have people once in a while like, holy shit, because I've been telling that story since the 1990s. I always told that story on my hotline. I've told it about 500 times over the years. Then that Netflix documentary comes out and there's footage of my family. And I'm like, that's fucking beautiful, man. Even Joey last Saturday, how many times over the years have I told you guys this story about Joey in a wheelchair in the early 2000s going to Funtime USA with a Photoshop picture of Lita on a naked body, and he actually asked Lita to sign it, and she wanted to kick his ass. This past Saturday, he and I did that show together, and I totally forgot about that story, and sure enough, he brought it up. And I let him tell a story, and I kept saying to myself, motherfucker, told you all. So you all thought I was lying. He literally told this story. It was exactly how I remembered it. Joey went to Funtime USA. They did this big autograph signing, and Lita was there. And Joey, unfortunately, is, he's wheelchair bound. And he literally went to Funtime USA to meet Lita. And at the time, there was a photo circulating the net of her topless. And he got the photo. And I think he bought it from eBay or something. And he literally went to the autograph signing and put it up to Lita and fucking said, could you sign this for me? And she wanted to beat the shit out of him. Just think, Lita wanted to beat up a handicapped guy. She wanted to beat up a guy in a wheelchair because she was mad, but she didn't sign it, by the way. She didn't sign it. Benjamin's asking, did Joey think it was real? We all thought it was real. Honestly, we all thought the photo was real. And the photo still is out there. It's obviously, 20 years old now, but that photo we believed was real at the time. I mean, we would Photoshop, but that was so perfect. Like, you really, you thought it was real. But the only thing that stopped me from thinking it was real was this. You guys remember the Mickey James stuff, right? Mickey Meat Hooks. Remember that? It was me that got that magazine leg show. And when I put that online, Mickey James at the time, which I don't blame her, I feel bad in reflection, but she's like, that's not me. That's someone who looks like me. And we were like, no, that's you. But I was the one that put the photos out there. And the thing was, I was the one that put the Jamie Copey photos out there, and she asked me to take them down for her children's sake. We had all of the nudes no one else had. I was the only schmuck that would put it out there. And with that Lita photograph, I was trying to figure out where it came from. Like, couldn't find any photo. Remember the Ashley Mazzaro stuff? That's awful. And it's so horrible what happened to her. But you guys heard recently that her name popped up on the Epstein files. And some of you put two and two together and said, DT, I remember your story in the mid-2000s with Long Island and what they were accusing her of being involved in. And we put that on the shows, and I got so much hate for it. And in reflection, I shouldn't have put it out there. But, I live not too far from there, and you hear what's being discussed. It's like, wow, You know, it's crazy shit. And here it is 20 years later, 15, 20 years later, and he pops up on the Epstein files. It's like, whoa, crazy shit, man. I was not a fan of The Departed. I love a lot of Martin Scorsese, but did he do The Irishman too? Irishman was awful, man. I tried to like that so much, man. You just sometimes you like force yourself to like something, and no matter how much you try, it's like I just can't. That's pretty much, yeah. Not everything Martin Scorsese I like. So, all right, let's start bringing this home. So don't forget, tomorrow night, right after Raw, I'll be live on our Discord channel, dtkcdiscord.com. More than welcome to join me live. We'll be talking Raw. We'll get into news. We'll talk about a few other things. Follow up a little bit more of what we talked about tonight. Taxi Driver was awesome, man. That was awesome. You talking to me? Do you know who I am? I mean, my wife jokes with me all the time because she thinks that like I act like as if I'm something. And she's like, oh, I can picture, you going up to people. Do you know who I am? Like, no, I'm just regular nobody. Never a fan, Raul, of the anonymous GM stuff. To me, that's kind of like when social media started to get like a big buzz and, doing the beeping and the flashing of the lights. That was god awful. Never liked it, hated it. Just never was a fan. By the way, I did catch a little bit of Bad Bunny's performance after the show last week. We ended up being right. When I went live last week, that was when the Super Bowl first started. And I had said that I have a feeling that he's not going to be as political as we think. I think the less that he spoke, politically wise with that, the better he would come off. And I saw some of it. I had no problem that he was singing in Spanish. I mean, I got into this real deep on Patreon Thursday. Thursday was brutal, man. For anybody that tuned in a little bit Thursday live, I talked for 5.5 hours. I literally lost my voice afterwards because I didn't do Wednesday Night Dynamite on Wednesday. We kept off a day, and originally I was going to do Patreon first and then Wednesday Night Dynamite second. But then we had so many questions come in for Patreon that I did Wednesday Night Dynamite first, and TNA, those motherfuckers, they never revealed the full card for No Surrender until after Impact went off the air. So I had to wait until Impact went off the air to give No Surrender predictions. And people are still mad at me because I predicted Ariana Grace to win the belt. How did you? I don't know. I just saw the trademark for that birthright thing. And I'm like, yeah, I could see them all walking around with gold and stuff like that. So, yeah, 5.5 hours. You will not see me doing that again anytime soon. I would do it even for charity, but that's rough, man. I literally could not talk afterwards. The next day it was shot. So I'm still kind of making up for it this weekend. My chest still hurts from before. Look how red it is. Thank you, Tongaloa, you asshole. Fucking prick. All right, let's get into a couple of final questions. King Birdie, will I do a special show for 1 year anniversary of Kev? Honestly, I don't think so. Will I talk about it? Of course, but it's not easy, man. It's, that night was surreal. It just, every emotion you could possibly think came. We were sad, we were angry, we were bitter, we were confused. We were trying to be happy at times. We were just angry. Like, we felt that it was preventable. It shouldn't have happened. And, I did a tribute show a few weeks later. Joey and I talked a little bit about it as well. But, that's something like, will I obviously mention it on the year? Of course I will. But to sit and do another episode, it's sad. It's depressing. It's not fun. I mean, I say this and I mean it. You know, I was close with Kev over the years, but that doesn't replace family. But I will say that knowing Kevin enough, I think Kev would want us to be happy and celebrate. And I even could picture him even saying like, yeah, it's almost like what Mickey Mantle said right before he passed. When Mickey Mantle had cancer and he looked on the camera and he says, you want a role model? You want advice? You know, don't do anything that I did. You know, like, I don't think Kev would say that, but I think Kev would say, learn from my mistakes. You know, learn and listen, I give Kev credit for some of the decisions that I made. I went and I got this addressed. I mean, I'm going to get that tumor taken out soon. You know, anytime I feel something doesn't seem right, I go check it out. I don't sit on it and wait. You know, it's unfortunate, but to do a whole episode for it, it's just going to bring people down. I mean, you know, the beauty about what Kevin and I did is there's 20 years worth of shows that anybody could hear at any time. And yes, it's sad to hear his voice, you know, and he's not around anymore. But, you know, I always compare it to my grandmother. My grandmother died in 1991. We did not have smartphones. I have no footage. I never thought about recording her on a camcorder because I never thought that she was going to die as young as she did and as abrupt as she did. I have nothing. I have 2 or 3 pictures. That's it. Like when I hear my mother talk, I kind of like pretend sometimes that that's my grandmother because they sounded similar, but I have nothing. You know, so, you know, the consolation about Kev is we got 20 years and thousands of episodes of shows that will always remember that voice. Like just when you feel the voice is starting to, you know, leave your memory, pop in an episode. And it's like he never left. It sucks, man. We're all going to go sometime. It's going to happen to me. It's going to happen to you. We just don't know when. But, you know, Kev was a very, very good guy. And he should be celebrated. And let me tell you something. I'm convinced that motherfucker, if he had the capability of looking down and see what was going on at that time, he would have been blown away by how many people in the wrestling world that acknowledged him, publicly and privately. You know, there was some names, and John, his brother, knows this more than anything. There was some people in wrestling, you know, even Hall of Famers, people on TV that, you know, that you get a DM like, yeah, back in the day, you know, I came across your shows and, you know, or I used to tune in. Most people that did that were from yesteryear. Like they didn't tune in now because back then there was so few shows, but you know, the names that were coming up, it was mind-boggling. Like I showed my wife, I was like, honey, look who just sent me a DM. And she looked at it, she'd be like, is that really him? I'm like, yeah. And I was like, you know, but I always treat everybody like a regular person. I don't get starstruck. Even like I said, when I put what I put out earlier this week about Royce Keys, and he reached out to me, we had an awesome conversation. You know, I don't want to reveal details, but let's put it this way. We are keeping in touch, you know, and I even joked with him. I will say this in joking. I'm like, look, you know, is this a setup? You know, because we had talked about something else. I'm like, are you setting me up? It's like, no, man. Why would I do that? And it was just joking, but, you know, like I've always just been able to just be down to earth. You know, I don't get starstruck. I mean, it doesn't mean I don't appreciate and respect and acknowledge the position someone's in. But when you see some names pop across your screen and think at some point that person used to tune in, you know, it's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool. I think Kev would have been honored. He would have been honored. Seriously. That made me feel good. Because I even joked to my wife, because I think I told you this before. I said to my wife at the time. I was like, honey, when I die, you think I'll get this kind of reaction? She's like, no. She's like, everybody liked Kevin. They hated you. It's like, you probably get like 1,000 thank gods, you know. But she was joking. But the thing is, I joked with her afterwards. I'm like, honey, I just realized it. If they tuned in to Kev, they tuned in to me too. So, listen, I try to be lighthearted about it because I think Kev, that's what he would want. I think Kev would want everybody to be happy. He wanted everybody to be happy as an escape. So, all right, America's Teflon. He is in 3 years right now as a pro wrestler. And it was Kev and my insight on the business that helped him across his career. I appreciate that. I really do. You know, it's a little bizarre to look back and to see like some of the people who even publicly admitted that they tune into our stuff. And once in a while you would ask somebody why, you know, and I say this in closing. I think we'll close with this. I'll say this in closing. Whether you're a gigantic show like JD, and props for him, great show with Coach earlier this week, or Jason. It felt like seeing a Goodfellas. It feels like one of the family members got made. He's going to do the podcast with Ariel Helwani now. Awesome, man. But whether you're have a huge following like them, or you have a following 10% of that, there's always a chance that someone is tuning in. And you should always remember that. And even today, you know, once in a while, I'll get a DM from someone that I would never expect and say, hey, tune in what you said. Thank you very much for the kind words, or thank you for the honesty. Appreciate that. You know, can't tell you how many times I have criticized someone, but I do it in a respectful way. And that person will reach out and say, listen, man, I appreciate what you said. You know, I don't like what you said, but you're honest, and I appreciate, the honesty. There's a lot of people out there that don't realize that you can give constructive criticism, but if you do it in a way that's respectful, people will respect you back. There's too many people that are afraid to voice out a certain way because they're afraid of the backlash. I think that's one of the reasons why I don't get backlash, because by now, most people know who I am. Do you know who I am? And listen, I've been around for so fucking long. Like, my life's an open book. So people know deep down inside, you know, my motives and my feelings. And I'll say this in closing. Any of you out there that podcast, that do news, wrestler, anything, you know, if you have an audience, whether it's an audience of 100,000 or an audience of 10, there's always a chance someone out there is watching. Always do what you do, be as if people are watching, because number one, it'll make you a better person. But number two, you never know when something you say, you know, not will be used against you in a court of law, but something you say, it will stick with someone. You know, we just talked last week about the CM Punk documentary, right before he had his first MMA fight. Do you have any idea how bizarre that was, that I get contacted by the TV producers? And he said, yeah, we want to use a clip from your show. And I was like, okay. And they're like, we're going to send you 5 clips, and you pick the one that we can use. And they're like, you know, do you want, you know, like, what did we want in return? And I told Kev, and Kev's like, I know what I want in return. I was like, what? He's like, a thank you. I was like, sure, we did it for nothing. But this is a true story. And if you go watch CM Punk documentary, you will hear us on it. When they sent me the 5 clips, now keep in mind, this is years ago. When they sent me the 5 clips, I realized immediately they were from 5 different episodes. Well, 4 out of 5. Yeah, four. The 5 clips were for 4 different episodes. So I had DM'd the person back and I said, these are from 4 different episodes. And the person said, yeah, we tune in. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I was like, how did they find them? You know what I mean? Like, how do you find it? So the person actually was a regular listener. And I picked the clip that they should use, and they used it on the show. You know, back in the day when we heard the story about AJ Styles getting very upset about Kevin and I both saying that he ain't going to cut it in WWE. This was early on. We were wrong, and we were happy for being wrong. When Teddy Hart fucking went on Sports Illustrated in the magazine and suddenly is calling me out, and I realized, holy shit, this guy's that upset with me. Like, it wasn't even like a current argument. It just stuck with him for years. So my point is that, you know, always, whether it's an audience of one or an audience of 100,000, there's always a chance of somebody tuning in. And that's why you should always do what you do. Be the best you can be. Don't have to be perfect. I think I'm a perfect example of that. I'm not a pro. You know, I'm just a regular guy. I've always felt that way since 1997. I'm just a regular guy doing this. And I guarantee you there are people out there that appreciate that. Believe me, because you go back to even the Minority Report days. Listen to Joey. Listen to who we were doing the shows. Like, why would people successful be tuning into, like, what do they care what we have to say? So never think that someone is not paying attention, because when you least expect it, someone probably is. And if we can help, awesome. You know. Oh, listen, I'll say this in closing, VJ, about Trick Williams. That guy's a superstar. As long as he doesn't get injured, and as long as he doesn't fuck up personally, which is likely not going to happen, that guy is the next megastar. You know, back in the day, you know, a lot of you remember this. I don't mean to be cocky, but a lot of you remember this. Before Roman Reigns was a single star, there's an infamous episode of the Don Tony Kevin Castle show. I said to Kev on the show, I'm like, Kev, I think Roman Reigns is going to get the John Cena push. And at the time, no one understood why I said that. And I said, I think he's the next big role model. That's the heir apparent to John Cena. And I think we were pretty much on point. Trick Williams is the next megastar. You know, listen, WWE could sign someone from AEW and they could rise to the top immediately, but Trick Williams is the next megastar. He has it, and they know they have it. They're just gonna gradually put it together. That guy, that's it. He's got it. And the most amazing thing about it, and it's just not a knock on Carmelo Hayes. Anybody that watched NXT on a regular basis knows this. There was a point, I know I've said this before, there's a point where Carmelo Hayes was here, Trick Williams was here, when they were together. And, you know, we always thought, Carmelo Hayes, that's the guy, he is him. They're going to bring him to main roster. And Trick Williams, you know, he's got the look and everything, and then something happened and it went like this. And that doesn't mean that Carmelo Hayes is the Marty Jannetty of the two, but Trick Williams just took off and exploded. And I'll leave you with this. This is great. Check out the Trick Williams interview from last week. He said exactly what Kevin and I were saying about Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker, a year before he went to the main roster, was still in NXT. And you had the usual podcasters, WWE, what the fuck? Bring him up. What the fuck? He's ready. WrestleMania, what the fuck? Why are you leaving NXT? We were saying it too. They kept Braun Breaker in NXT for another year. He teamed up with Corbin. He was a babyface. Then he turned heel. And that extra year seasoned Braun Breaker that once he got to that main roster, not only was he going to stick, he was going to skyrocket to the top. Braun is not there yet, but he's the future. And there's no denying it. Trick Williams, they did the same thing. Trick Williams was asked on an interview last week, you know, like, how do you feel about being in TNA and having to wait a whole nother year? And listen to what Trick Williams said. he says almost identical of what we were saying about Braun Breaker. WWE keeps some people in NXT an extra year just to fine-tune them and not rush them. And that could happen down the line for Lola Vice. That could happen down the line for Kalani Jordan. That could happen down the line. But Trick Williams, that guy is the next megastar. All right, everybody, I'm out of here. Hope everyone has a great rest of your evening. I am going to get this episode online. You're welcome to post some feedback. Not only do I see it, but everybody else tuning in sees it. And I thank you, as always, for your support. It is never taken for granted. I know you guys are the reason why I'm still doing this after all these years. And I appreciate you more than you know. So I'll get this online for everyone tomorrow night after Raw. DTKCDiscord.com. DTKCDiscord.com. Catch me there. And we'll do that. And then we have, what do we have this week? Got Wednesday Night Dynamite on Wednesday, Patreon on Thursday, History Show Friday night or Saturday morning. And in a week from today, we are right back here on the Sit Down on YouTube. So much love, everybody. I appreciate it. And I'll definitely catch you all in the next one. Be good. Talk to you all again soon.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.